The Dance of the Dragons, a dynasty built on betrayal. Welcome back, everyone, to the channel where fantasy meets strategy and nostalgia fuels our digital adventures. They were the blood of the dragon, rulers of fire, keepers of sky, a family destined to rule, and destined to fall. The Dance of the Dragons was not just a war. It was a civil catastrophe, a dynastic implosion, a firestorm fueled by ambition, pride, and the deadliest sin of all, betrayal. This is the tale of a dynasty built on betrayal. This is the Dance of the Dragons. Blood of the Dragon. The Targaryens were unlike any house in Westeros. They hailed from Valyria, the fallen empire of dragons and sorcery. When Old Valyria was consumed by fire, the Targaryens were the last of their kind. And from the island of Dragonstone, they conquered Westeros under Aegon the Conqueror and his sisters, riding dragons no army could stand against. For over a century, they ruled. Through war and peace, through fire and fear, but the Dragonlords were never meant to share power. The blood of the dragon was as hot as wildfire. And under the weight of crowns, alliances, and succession, it began to boil. A queen's promise. King Viserys the First Targaryen was a peaceful king, perhaps too peaceful. When his wife, Queen Aemma, died in childbirth along with their son, Viserys was devastated. He named his daughter, Princess Rhaenyra, his heir. Lords from across the realm swore loyalty to her. She was crowned as the future queen of the Seven Kingdoms. It was a bold move. No woman had ever sat the Iron Throne. But peace did not last. Viserys remarried. His new queen, Alicent Hightower, bore him sons, Aegon, Aemond, and Daeron. Powerful, male, and dangerously ambitious, two factions began to form. The Blacks, who supported Rhaenyra, and the Greens, who supported Queen Alicent and her children. The seeds of betrayal had been planted. A court divided. What once was a family, became a battlefield. In the Red Keep, smiles were daggers. Feasts turned into insults. Every glance carried suspicion. Rhaenyra grew into a strong, proud woman. But her reputation was marred by scandal. Rumors that her children were fathered by Esser Harwin Strong, not her husband, Laenor Velaryon. Meanwhile, Alicent's sons were trained for war. Her father, Otto Hightower, whispered of legacy and power. The Iron Throne could not pass to a woman, he argued, especially one with bastard sons. But King Viserys refused to name a new heir. Even as he aged and weakened, he stood by his daughter. He believed love could mend the cracks. He was wrong. The Eye and the Sapphire. Tensions exploded when Rhaenyra's children and Alicent's sons came to blows. Young Lucerys Velaryon slashed out Aemond's eye during a fight. In fury, Alicent demanded Lucerys lose an eye in return. King Viserys refused, but the damage was irreversible. Aemond took to calling Rhaenyra's sons strong, mocking their illegitimacy. And he, now one-eyed, claimed the largest dragon in the world, Vhagar. The power balance had shifted, and the rage between the Blacks and the Greens burned brighter than ever. Aemond wore a sapphire in place of his lost eye. But his true weapon was hatred. The king is dead. In the year 129 AC, King Viserys the First Targaryen died in his sleep. But rather than announce his death, Queen Alicent and her allies kept it secret. They called a secret council. And there, a decision was made that would plunge the realm into war. They crowned Aegon II Targaryen king, behind closed doors, without Rhaenyra's knowledge. It was treason, betrayal in its most brutal form. And yet, it had already begun. Esser Criston Cole, Lord Commander of the Kingsguard, killed loyalists to Rhaenyra. Messages were sent, doors were barred, ravens silenced. The Greens had seized the throne. Rhaenyra would never forgive them. A crown of ash. On Dragonstone, Rhaenyra learned of her father's death, and her half-brother's usurpation. In a fit of rage and grief, she was crowned queen by her loyalists. Her supporters, lords, dragon riders, and knights, rallied to her cause. A kingdom now had two monarchs, Aegon the usurper in King's Landing, and Rhaenyra the rightful in Dragonstone. The dance had begun. Brother against sister, nephew against cousin, a house devouring itself. Dragons would fly, cities would burn, and blood would stain the throne. All in the name of power. The first blood. To test the enemy's strength, Rhaenyra sent her son, Lucerys, to Storm's End, seeking support from House Baratheon. But Aemond was already there. Lucerys arrived to see Aemond and Vhagar waiting like a storm on the horizon. A duel was denied, but in the skies, Aemond took his revenge. Riding Vhagar, he hunted Lucerys and his smaller dragon, Arax, through a raging storm. What happened next was not just an act of war, it was personal. Vhagar struck. Arax was torn from the sky. Lucerys and his dragon fell to the sea. Rhaenyra's heart shattered. A mother's scream became a queen's wrath. The war had now claimed its first prince. Fire unleashed. Rhaenyra responded with fire. Her uncle husband, Daemon Targaryen, sent assassins to King's Landing. Known as Blood and Cheese, they infiltrated the Red Keep and slaughtered Aegon's heir, his young son, Jaehaerys. The violence escalated. Both sides called their dragons Dragonstone, Harrenhal, Tumbleton, Rook's Rest. Towns and castles were reduced to rubble. Even dragon riders began to fall. Rhaenys Targaryen, the queen who never was killed atop Meleys by Aegon and Aemond in a devastating battle. Aegon himself was burned and crippled. Aemond became the de facto commander. Yet the betrayals only deepened. Allies turned coats. Lords switched sides. The realm bled. Wild dragons screamed across the sky. A family devoured. As the war dragged on, betrayal began to strike within. Rhaenyra's own allies grew disillusioned. Her harsh decisions, paranoia, and grief alienated many. And Aegon's camp suffered as well. Internal rivalries, reckless ambition, and infighting among the Greens made unity impossible. Then came the most devastating betrayal of all. Aemond and Vhagar turned on his own people. In a desperate strike, he destroyed the Riverlands, but also alienated crucial support. Rhaenyra, with dwindling allies, finally took King's Landing. But it was not a triumph, it was a funeral. The city was broken, her supporters were dead, the people hated her, and in a final twist of betrayal, her last son, Aegon the Younger, was taken hostage. The queen is dead. In her darkest hour, Rhaenyra fled the capital with what little remained of her court. But she was betrayed again. This time by those within. She was captured, dragged back to King's Landing, and delivered to her half-brother. Aegon too showed no mercy. He fed Rhaenyra to his dragon, Sunfire, alive, in front of her son. It was not justice, it was vengeance, and though Aegon too had his revenge, he would not rule long. His reign was short, plagued by rebellion and assassination attempts. Within a year, he too was poisoned, killed by his own court. The aftermath. The dance of the dragons left Westeros in ruin. Dozens of nobles lay dead. Cities burned. Fields scorched. Hundreds of thousands perished. Dragons, once the greatest weapons of House Targaryen, were nearly extinct. Of all the mighty beasts, only a few remained. And the dynasty, it never recovered. The Iron Throne eventually passed to Rhaenyra's son, Aegon III, scarred by war, traumatized by his mother's death, and known to history as the Dragonbane. He ruled quietly, but the magic, the majesty, the power of House Targaryen faded. All because of a war born not from duty, but from betrayal. A house divided. The Dance of the Dragons was not just a civil war. It was a mirror held up to House Targaryen. It exposed every crack, every secret sin, every hidden resentment, every ambition cloaked in honor. It showed the world what happens when love is poisoned by pride, when loyalty is drowned in blood. A house that once ruled the skies, now feared its own reflection. Betrayal had not come from strangers. It came from brothers, sisters, fathers, sons, and the price, everything. The story